agenda. We'll do public comment first, and then we'll move into executive session. So, public comment. Is there anybody in the room that wishes to make a comment? Seeing nothing. Eric, is there anybody online?
No, no one online.
Okay. So next, we do have a couple of things that were sent to us that we have to deal with in executive session. So
Yep.
is there a motion?
I'll move to find that premature public knowledge regarding a contract the town is a party to and a labor relations agreement with employees would clearly place the town at a substantial disadvantage, and further move that we enter executive session to discuss a contract and a labor relations agreement with employees under Title I, Sections 313, A1A and B of the Vermont statutes, and invite Town Manager Eric Wells to join both discussions, and Finance/HR Director Shirley Goodell-Lackey and Police Chief Patrick Foley to join the discussions about a labor relations agreement with employees.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are in executive session. We'll be back shortly.
I appreciate the big fonts, by the way.
Back in open session. There is a resolution that the chair will ask a motion to be made on relative to a piece of litigation that we were discussing. The resolution reads as follows. Resolution of the Select Board of the Town of Williston, the undersigned being the members of the Select Board of the Town of Williston, a municipal corporation duly created and validly existing under and pursuant to the laws of the state of Vermont, hereby resolve as follows. Resolved, that the town authorizes and ratifies the settlement of a claim by John and Amy Gray in which they assert their minor child suffered an injury at the town of Williston summer camp. Resolved, that the town admits no liability and enters into the settlement for the sole purpose of avoiding protracted litigation. Resolved, that the town hereby authorizes Town Manager Eric Wells to execute. Town Manager Eric Wells to execute on behalf of the town any and all necessary and incidental documents required in connection with the above described settlement, including the settlement agreement and general release to be prepared by the town's defense attorney, Brian Monahan. Resolved that pursuant to the proposed settlement agreement and general release, the town authorizes the payment of funds by and on behalf of the town to the Grays in compensation for the alleged injury, and further authorizes the payment of settlement funds by VLCT Passive Inc. pursuant to the settlement agreement and general release to be executed by the Grays, subject to payment by the town and the town's deductible. In witness whereof, the undersigned have executed this resolution on the date set forth. There's a place for all of our signatures. It's my understanding, Greta, you're recusing yourself from this issue.
Yep.
So that is the resolution that we'd be looking for a motion.
So I move that the board adopt the resolution.
I second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. One abstention. The motion carries. And that is that. So,
You get a copy too.
all right, that brings us up to the next item on the agenda, FY26 budget work session. We will continue working on the fiscal year 2026 budget. Eric, do you have an introductory
Yep, I can
comment?
kick it off, and I'll have Shirley do the bulk of the numbers here. She did all the staff work on this. So this follows up on the board's discussion last week. We prepare materials to review that updates the budget numbers. Shirley swept through with some final calculations for payroll and benefits and overall final checks that we do every January. We also include the deferred capital item expenses, removing those. There's two scenarios you'll see to follow up on discussion last week: adding a full-time patrol officer and a full-time social worker in the police department. These scenarios contemplate a full year and a half year funding the positions. Revenue side of the budget contemplates using additional fund balance, and also looking at use or elimination of community projects funds that are built into the general fund right now based on closing a couple prior years and understanding where that fund is. Overall policy items for the board to discuss are the bottom line on the expense side of the budget, the amounts raised with taxes, the estimated cent increase on the rate, use of fund balance and community project funds. As Shirley set up these scenarios, we didn't move the tax rate at all, but that's part for your discussion tonight as well. So where it is right now is just under 4 cents, so about $120 a year, $10 a month for the median assessed home in town, about $300,000 assessment. Shirley's got her computer, so we can also run scenarios here. What we're hoping for tonight is to get an almost final version of the budget based on these policy decisions by the board. We would then do a final sweep and check of the numbers, and then we can plug that into the warning to adopt. First to adopt the budget article, then adopt the warning at your meeting next week, and then we will be ready for town meeting at that point.
Okay. Did you have anything to add, Shirley?
Do you want to talk about the budget changes? Because the other thing in your packet was, that I had promised to do last time, was the Community Projects Fund update as well. So you have a memo on that as well.
Are we talking about something I got last week?
No, something you just got. It's called Review of ARPA/Community Projects Fund.
It was emailed out a couple days ago.
Oops.
Do you want a copy?
I would love a copy. I will have one.
Oh, well, I don't have one, but I can go print you one. If you want to carry on and I'll go print?
Sure, I might be able to.
Okay.
Keep going. I
Yep.
probably have the numbers in my head somewhere.
So anyways, I updated that starting back from the original ARPA funds, that money that was actually expensed to the ARPA grant. The funds that were approved under ARPA, but when we closed out ARPA, we rolled over the balance that wasn't used under ARPA into the new Community Projects Fund. We moved or backed out the FY25 capital budget allocation, and then we went, this just shows you all the additional things that we have, that you approved, the industrial off-road bridge, the TIF allocation study, town hall parking lot, the Allen Brook Trail Boardwalk, the fire department strategic plan, the Williston Community Food Shelf, and then what we have in this capital FY26 capital budget, $305,000. And the big variance between what you saw last time and this time is that I removed the $125,000 that we had in, that I was still holding for FY24. So we added that back in because we don't need it we are not going to need it. The bottom line, FY24 right now, and again, they're not audited, but I'm pretty comfortable with them. We're like 14,000 revenue over expenses, so pretty darn close. So with some other fun projects that were completed, that remaining balance is only like 14,000 is going to roll back into the capital fund, and then we've earned interest 72,000, and that's through November because I haven't done December. So right now you are looking at 313,000 and change still available to allocate. So you have that information in your head as we're talking about the FY26 changes to the budget. And as Eric said, trying to model this out, I also, in this pile of stuff that you got, I also gave you a memo on the estimated fund balance revision from last week. I did one with adding the PD positions full-time, full year, and one with the PD positions full-time for half the year. So the difference, and then followed the same calculation, having 2 new positions full-time for the full year leaves us at 16.8% of the fund balance as a percentage of operating expenses. And remember, the select board policy is 10 to 20%. And then if we go to the two new positions for half the year, that ratio goes to 16.97%. And the reason I'm talking about that is last week I was at 17.2, and the agreement was to use a little bit more of the fund balance since it was higher than we expected. So this didn't take it down a lot, but I'm gonna put my caveat in here is that, and I talk about it in this memo as well, that we have seen some significant revenue over expenses, in the last years, not for FY '24. And the main reason of that is because our local options tax has been under budgeted. That is not the case. So I feel like FY '24, we're looking at 14,000 excess. I think our years are gonna look more like that going forward. So we aren't gonna be increasing that unassigned fund balance as we have seen in the past. So that's my reservation with fund balance. I'm not telling you what to do, but just thinking about that in the future, where that might go and the reliance we have on fund balance in this budget, depending on which scenario you're looking at. So full year for tax reduction, we have 640, those two positions, full year is 644. Those two positions for half year are 635. The reason it's so, you'd say, why isn't it farther apart? Because the reductions in the capital budget, the 112,000, is that what it was?
Yeah.
Are offsetting the increase in the expense. The other changes that I made, along with the list that we had talked about. So you have these two very long sheets that are very detailed because it was easier for me to think about all the changes that way. So many of these say true up in workers' comp. So as we were putting the final budget spreadsheets together, the COLA changed, but we didn't actually run that through the detailed payroll schedule. So I did that first, and that just made some changes to wages a little bit, which changed the benefits. But we also got the final workers' comp numbers from the league. That increased about 12,500, but our property and casualty went down 12,500. So those two netted to zero, but I need to have all those numbers tie into the final spreadsheet, because when I have to go back and look at the budget, everything needs to tie to be able to answer questions accurately. So that's why you see wage and benefit changes. The other changes, what we talked about was the increase for the 4th of July, the Community Justice Center, because we just don't have any idea what that grant's gonna look like.
Those two were from the last time, right?
What'd you say?
Those two were on the last sheet.
They were on the last sheet. So the capital equipment decrease was on the last sheet as well. It changed by $500 because one of the ones that we were decreasing was actually 5,500. Fix that. And then on the last sheet as expense, it was an increase for the Howard Center. And that was already in the budget for 42,000. What we had to do was decrease our other revenue because we were thinking we could use the opioid settlement funds to help fund that. So that's a source of revenue. So that is backed back out of the revenue now because we know that we can. So the couple of other variances, so I'm looking at these detailed spreadsheets, and I'm looking at the two new positions, full-time.
I'm sorry, this is kind of like going over my head because I'm not looking at anything. Can you print it or no?
Oh, can you print it?
Can I? Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm striking out text.
So,
You are.
let me see. So you need all the stuff I'm talking about right now?
Yes, I do, sorry.
Yep. No, that's okay.
I depend on what you stick in my box. I grabbed that, I didn't look at it, didn't look at the other stuff.
We got this out late Saturday. It was a little bit.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
Had a long weekend.
We'll go through it. But Chief Foley's here, discussing the police department and positions. If the board had any questions for the chief, and I know Chief's here to also lend his support to the department in the discussion this evening. I will say, while Shirley's printing that, we've been looking into the social worker position and getting some good information this week about how other towns that have this are structuring it. I spoke with the Brattleboro town manager today. They have a position. We're going to talk with the coordinator for the state police for their embedded positions on Friday. I chatted with Jim Baker yesterday to get those leads of people to talk to. As if the board has this position in the budget, if we think about how to structure that, a guidance we're getting is to think about it as an embedded position from someone that would be employed by a third-party agency, and that is to have that clinical supervision by the third-party agency and then the oversight, and then they would essentially be embedded within our department. That's how Brattleboro structured it, how does state police structure it. I think Bennington may have something in place too.
I think the school's structured that way too.
The school is too, yeah. So we're finding that would be, if we're going to add that position, that would be a good model to look at. And thinking leading up to town meeting, if this is in your budget proposal, the chief and I want to be able to have a good explanation at town meeting about how it would function, how operationally it would work, and why the town, it's a good position for the town overall. So we've been doing some legwork on that this week, whether it's in this budget or a future budget. We've got some good information on that we're talking about.
I won't ask you to start over though.
I won't. So this is the fund balance analysis.
Okay.
With the two new positions, full-time, full year, and half-year. Carter is running out of it. And
That's the ARPA you were talking about.
That's the ARPA I was talking about. And I didn't talk about this, but here's the schedule of all the approved ARPA projects and where they are. So just for your information. And then here's the one with all the changes, and up here for your half year.
Thank
There
you.
you go. You
Sorry
are
about
very
that.
welcome.
Sorry, and my apologies to the board too for missing that.
We need our budget member to have the.
I was gonna say, if this was like legal, I'd assume somebody else had it, but
Yeah.
I live for this stuff.
So I am on these pages that have all the numbers. I'm on the two new positions, full-time for full year, and looking at the revenue. So I ran these, just said, okay, knowing that you'll look at them and you'll make changes if you want to. So with that one, we had $50,000 in the budget from the community project funding, so I increased that by 50 up to 100, because my thought there is really, I'm thinking about fund balance. And then the fund balance went from 500,000, we added 144,000, for a total of 644 out of fund balance for tax reduction. And again, as Eric said, I did these without changing the tax rate right now. That doesn't mean we can't, that's just the way I ran it in order to look at the numbers and what we might do to fund balance.
I'll have to back up and ask you a question, which.
Yeah, go right ahead.
So you were explaining the difference between the 644 and the 635. Run that by me again, because you took a.
So, with the half-year position,
Yeah,
that is, we also have the reduction to the capital fund of 112,000, so
but wouldn't that be in both cases, the reduction to the capital fund?
it would be in both cases. Why? Let's see. Let me just think about that for a minute, Jean, because I had it all figured out in my head when I was putting this together.
Don't you hate that?
Yes.
Would be community projects funding, surely, there
Oh.
might be the variance there in the
Thank-
scenarios.
Thank you. In the second scenario, full-time, half-year, I removed the community project funding, 50,000. I removed it completely. And then I increased the fund balance from 500 to 135. So,
there's more than just a change of,
right, so thinking that you might want to preserve the community project fund balance, I just took that out, any funding to help reduce the tax rate in the second scenario.
okay, so tell me again,
Thank
you
you,
took
Eric.
50K of the community fund?
So in the half year,
Scenario
there
two
was 50K in there, and I reduced it to 0.
from the community project fund?
Yep.
Okay, okay,
And in the full year scenario, I actually increased it from 50 to 100.
got it. And so in the first scenario, 2 positions, full-time, full year. In the second one, it's 2 positions, both full-time, half-year.
Yep,
Got it.
you got it.
So it's 1 less position, and that makes a lot more sense, the 100,000 difference.
Yes, yep.
Just to make it more, more numbers. So thinking about what if we did, you know, one of the positions full year and one half year, what those numbers would look like.
Sure.
Just, you know, so that we can,
Do you have a preference for, I'll do this.
I think, you know, we're hearing, you know, obviously community safety, so I would say the officer probably.
Okay.
For full year.
Okay, I'll run those for you as well,
For full year, you said.
For full year,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
And then keep the social worker at half year.
half year, yep. Some things I can do on the fly, but that one where you have all the benefits and the insurance, I don't want to give you bad information,
Yeah.
so.
So you mentioned you kept the tax rate the same, currently.
Yep,
So that was at, remind me where we were at 5 point,
9.
The rate was going to
Oh, the
increase
rate
just under
was-
4 cents.
yeah, 4
Yep.
cents, okay,
The,
okay,
yeah, so that's about $120 for the median.
right,
Right.
okay.
What's the percent increase?
I think it's about 11 or so,
Yep,
10 or 11, going from 35 cents to 39 cents.
Wait,
30.
11% increase?
No, we were talking about,
Like,
What percent increase?
the increase,
In,
yeah.
in the rate itself or the
In the
bottom line?
budget.
In the bottom line budget was 5.9 to start, and then the,
yeah, I'm just
in
scrolling
Shirley's
down there.
memo, she.
Yeah.
Pages that-
So, full year with the PD, with the 2 new positions is just short of 7% increase. And, oops, I gotta flip over to a different schedule here.
The half year was about 6.25%.
Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, that's the expense.
Oh, I did have it in my memo,
Yeah.
didn't I?
Okay. But then you adjusted it so it stays at that 5.9% by using additional community projects or fund balance.
That number still
Right.
increased for the expense.
For the
piece,
expense,
but it's-
right, but
the
Right.
tax
Ta-
rate
right,
itself
in
hasn't
order to,
changed
yes,
since
exactly, yeah,
Right.
okay,
what we gave.
okay, okay.
Yep. I just used those 2 levers.
Thank you.
And a lot of-
My brain's
a
just
lot
like
of
trying
variables
to,
there.
yeah. Okay.
Jean's got a thought coming. Yeah.
no, I still am sort of parked at wanting to set the 2 positions for the police department aside for a minute and keep the baseline budget below 5. And then have a discussion about the ads, and if we continue to think as a select board that that's super important, that we talk about them as something that we're adding because it's super important. So, can't quite tell where we are with all the numbers.
I like that. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, so I think for the baseline budget piece, and I think we could figure this out. So we were at 5.9% increase, and that was before we backed out the capital deferments of 112,000, and then, you know, the other new position as the HR manager in there. So I think if that's
I'd kind of like to leave the HR manager in that 5%, because that's sort of town operations,
Yeah.
that if we want to add it, we should figure out how to keep it at a reasonable, you know,
Yep.
hit to the taxpayer. It's super important for the town, but that's just something we're gonna say, Eric, you gotta figure out how to get it in, under a reasonable number. So that should fit in the 5.
Yeah, I think when we removed the 112,000 from that 5.9% increase, I think we were at like 5.1 or 5.05, so we were
Really
just
close.
a tiny bit,
Yeah.
right around there.
So hold on, Eric. So I have our original December 3rd, 24 budget up. So I'm going to take just the capital equipment operating budget number, which was 543,150, and I'm going to subtract out of it, sorry, I don't remember now, 112,750. And it's a long spreadsheet, sorry.
This is gonna be
That brings us
fascinating.
down to 5.17%. But I think to keep going, I probably should add the 10 back
Yeah, I was
to,
gonna say those changes that we.
Yeah, the other
yeah.
Yeah.
changes.
So- Even though it's sitting in select board in this budget, I'm just gonna add it back because all we care about is the bottom line right now.
So that's the 10 for July 4th,
Yep,
plus then the 7,500 for CJC.
yep,
And the HR rate that also went up.
Yep.
yes. So, and 7,500 is PD. Community justice. Okay. So I haven't done anything with the HR position yet, because again, you have to deal with insurance and the property taxes. So I'll just say with 113,000 in capital projects out, the 10,000 and the 7,500, we are now at 5.29%.
What's 0.3% of the budget worth?
Yeah.
$45K, about?
Yeah.
So I didn't follow how you did all of the, Eric, how you did all the deferments, but you couldn't find another 50K to defer?
I looked for projects, equipment that was up for replacement at least 2 years or more out. A lot of things were in the 2030s, so we went through the capital schedule. That's where that number landed.
And then I did the same thing this weekend, and I didn't find anything that wouldn't give us enough capital savings based on the repurchase date, that we'd be too short if we didn't fund. So I didn't find anything more than Eric found.
Yeah, I'm trying to think where else we have it.
And the few that we had in the capital projects are so small, 1,500, 2,500, it's just not even worth it.
So then just baseline, then we need to cut something big, or we need to, you know,
Shift it to,
shift from unassigned or,
from the general fund to
yep,
community projects or something.
yep. And so, in the current budget, you're using, you know, what, 300 and, I forget the number you just gave us, Jean, for, community projects fund dollars?
300 and,
30, I wrote down.
you have your memo right there? Thank you.
No, I just wrote,
Oh.
that's what I wrote down when I was
Yeah.
trying to
Um,
keep up.
And then, and there's about 380 we're saying left to assign, or
313 left to assign.
313?
Yep.
Okay. Is there identifiable, I mean, other than, you know, putting it towards some additional capital expenses that are identifiable
Yeah.
items, additional identifiable items that we could, you know, assign to the community projects fund?
Yeah, I'm just thinking one-time money would be the best way to use it.
Right.
Yeah.
We've, used it as a balancing mechanism in the general fund.
Mm-hmm.
So I think without going through, let's pull up the capital schedule, using it, maybe splitting it between the highway truck replacement and cruisers or something like that with the one-time money. But just understanding that, we're low on on the cruiser account, especially for what we've been putting into it year to year from the operating budget.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to address that incrementally, but I would say if you're gonna use one-time money, capital's probably the piece that makes the most sense for it.
I worry about one-time money.
Right, because those are going to come back.
Yep. Yep, and that had been always our hesitancy with using, this pool of money for that reason. Yeah.
Yeah, but if we're doing a capital expense and it's not a yearly recurring expense, that's a little bit better.
Yeah, and the trouble with those, is we buy the dump truck every year and the police cruisers every year.
Yeah.
I know.
You buy a dump truck every year?
Yeah.
My toddlers would be so excited about that.
If they were approving this budget, no
That'd be-
problem.
yeah,
all dump
That's all you gotta tell them. We get a new dump truck every year.
Is the number of about 45,000 you said, Shirley? 0.3% of the overall budget?
Yep, yep.
So
I
that's
mean,
for that
we could-
HR you're talking about?
Did you?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was including the HR position. You had added
Yeah.
that back in the full year, right, for the
Yeah,
base?
can you talk to me
Right.
about, a little bit about why, I understand bringing an HR director, HR manager on during open enrollment is problematic, but you brought her all the way to July.
Yes.
Is there,
Yeah, just the thought for the timing, if it was Q2 of the year for an October, July, August, September, if we're looking at like an October 1st start date, that's leading, I know with the finance side of the house at that time of year with the budget, the audit and open enrollment, onboarding someone adds an extra piece to that. So, even if it was August 1st or something like that, just trying to give a little time to get somebody onboarded and settled in before, and try to offload that from Shirley before we get that really busy period at the tail end of the year.
And we can say roughly that increase is about $30,000. I'm just looking at this detailed spreadsheet where we have, if you look at manager staff, wages and benefits, there's some fine tuning, as I was talking about before, but let's just roughly say 30,000 is the benefits and wages related to HR.
So 30,000 plus the 40, roughly 50 for those three items we've added back in. So we've cut that, savings from the capital deferment in half. Yeah. So we're what, that's at 5.5 5.6%. So that's a long way to go from
Right.
your 5% or
Yeah.
ideally below that you want.
So we're at,
Wait, thought we were at 45.
yeah, we're
What'd you do?
Yeah.
at 5.29
Oh, right,
Yeah.
without the
with
manager.
that, without
Right.
the,
Right, without reducing
without the
that
manager.
back.
But if we add that manager position back
Oh, I
in,
thought you already added it back in.
Not
No.
to these numbers.
Ah, okay.
These are the original numbers where we had it starting
Yep.
in October.
right, so if we
So-
add the manager, in addition to that, then we're at,
I said October, December.
so then that's a what, 5 point, with the HR manager?
Here, let me just do this.
I can't wait for the video. This is going to be riveting TV.
I know. Why doesn't everybody want to sit here for this?
Oops, yeah, I need to make that a percent. 5.5,
5.5, okay.
yeah.
So 5.5, and that's, then we figure that's what, 75,000? Okay. So what are you looking at there in one-time capital expenses that in the $75,000 range?
I was remembering looking at this December transmittal. This isn't the
Yeah.
version with the deferred ones already.
Right,
Because I was gonna say, oh, we can start funding some of these with ARPA that's left. in.
Yeah.
Just sprinkle it, like a few, like, 5,000 from this one, 5,000 from this one, but, I gotta pull up the deferment sheet.
I mean, one thing, the reality is the chances of us being fully staffed on July 1st next summer is pretty slim. And I understand not wanting to take the funding for that position out. But the reality is that we probably will have some money towards whatever capital decision we're making in the real world.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm comfortable with that. I could, if you took say we're down 4 firefighters, let's take a fire position out because you know you're never gonna staff it, but then you have a problem of having to put it back in at some point.
Right.
So, but if you took funding for some other capital out, the chances of having the ability to put that money back because you're understaffed, probably pretty high.
As we also think down the road, right, as we add police, that means that we're gonna be adding another vehicle or two as well down the road, and the maintenance that goes with those.
There's a lot of discussion to be had about growing our staff.
Yeah.
It's very complicated in
It is.
space and where they're gonna be and what they're going, so there's a lot of bigger conversations we have to have, but
Yeah.
I do
Well, and I
wanna
think
not,
that's part of the strategic, the plan that we're,
Yep.
now funded through.
right, well, I mean, we have a strategic plan, we just don't have
Yeah.
thought through how we're gonna fund that strategic plan, so.
Well, but I mean, I think that's a point of, isn't that the community safety, the new one is thinking about funding mechanisms for it and all of that, right? And,
Yeah,
yeah,
that
Yeah.
progression of
Yeah.
where we're going and then how to get there.
yeah.
Well, I would be comfortable with giving staff direction to come back with a baseline budget of 4.9%, and explain how that would work, and then add, do we decide 1.5 or 2 positions, per public safety on top of that? Terry's not nodding, everybody else is nodding.
Yeah. So, plus half a year social worker, plus full year police officer?
Yep. And so you're just wanting scenarios in which that 75,000
No,
could be, however we can,
I would trust them to come
Yeah.
up with the best
Yep.
possible way, so I'd be happy with him,
Yeah.
Eric explaining it to us, come with all the paperwork and the warnings, and
yeah.
I promise to open all the emails Eric sends me.
So that, just so I'm just thinking, so that 75, Shirley, did you say that included the HR manager for the full year or for 3/4 of the year?
So that was 3/4. So when you say 75, what number are you referring to?
Well,
So
you,
That's
because,
5.5%,
5.5%
5.5%.
increase.
yeah,
That's the HR manager for 3/4 of the year, because I'm back to the 12/3/24 original budget submission, which it was in there for 3/4 of the year.
Okay.
That's the one I'm using.
I thought that was the 5.29, and then
Yeah.
then you went to the full year, and it bumped up to 5.5.
Oh, you're right,
Yes.
you're right.
Okay.
Yep,
Yes.
sorry.
yeah,
Yep,
okay, okay, so yeah, so
Sorry.
the 75
Yep.
is with the full
Makes it
year
easier
HR, yeah, okay.
yes, sorry.
All right.
For,
Numbers are certainly Jean's territory more than mine, but I was like, I
You're
thought I
doing-
had a grasp
I
on
don't
this
know,
one.
I'm gonna cede the crown here, you're doing great.
okay, so essentially, yeah, we're at 5.5% if we have the HR manager for the full year in the budget.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And the board's looking to essentially reduce the budget with that, including that, where that position is, and that's our baseline budget, get that to about a 4.9% year-to-year expense increase. And then, you have that baseline year-to-year, and then you're talking about adding the 1.5 public safety positions on top of that, and just kind of decouple it that way for the narrative.
Yes,
Yeah,
So essentially, we want to, we'll reduce that bottom line by $75,000, and we can see how we can do that.
And I trust you on the HR position. I mean, if you're looking at trying to get to 75 and you have to take her back to a 3/4, him or her, to a 3/4 position, that's,
Right.
I'm not saying it has to
Or-
be a full year.
started in September 1st.
September, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that could get,
I mean, it's
10,
a,
20,000
Yeah.
right there.
yeah,
it's a budget, right?
yeah.
It's a plan.
Yeah, and then that's not,
Whatever goes how you.
it gives you an extra month to
Yeah,
work with.
things
and
look
not- Yeah.
Do the full year.
Okay. Are we also gonna talk about
Fund balance?
I was gonna say the 1% to
Oh.
or the penny, for the ERF too. Have we,
Can we just, I just may clarify, so you guys, so we, as a team, have settled on a relative fund balance number that was comfortable?
If I can throw my 2 cents into this, I have no problem waiting half years for both positions. The social work position, the embedded social worker, that's new to us. We're not having people knock down our doors, police officers here. We've had vacancies since I've been here at 17, and we've been only in full staff once in the last 7.5 years. So to balance the budget, get you where it is, I would, if you want to throw out a position, full position and a half position, let us decide what we want to use it for. Because I think, we're working on the embedded social worker now, we're starting to have meetings, talking to
Yep.
various communities. But if we get that money, by the time we do an RFP or whatever we want to do to, get that position in place, it might be January of 2026, we have that person on board, so we've already saved 6 months of money.
Yep.
So, maybe put that little caveat on the side saying, okay, whoever comes in first, you can use that money for that full-time position, and the second position waits for a half-time position. But, we just got our second, position now, the half position, and our queue is empty. So, and we're not the only agency, and if you look around here in Chippy County, everybody's, trying to fight and get the best offer out there. So, we're doing our best to advertise, but, the sentiment here in Vermont is not pro law enforcement, I'll tell you that right now.
So I guess what I'm hearing, or what I'm taking from that, is 1.5 positions is what needs to go in. For a budget, you need to decide if it's a police officer or a social worker, but in reality, you will have funding for 1.5 position, and whatever you can hire
Yeah, yes.
would be the right
If
thing.
you need to get that the bottom line down a 1/4%, then make both positions half positions.
I'm comfortable with 1.5.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, though.
I think we'll sweep through. We'll see if we can get that 75. And I can update the board later this week if we're running into some challenges there, just to update you. But, and then we'll look at that. We'll sweep through everything again. We can look at capital one more time, and maybe we could just wean a little bit from the operating budget and use a little bit more one-time community projects funds money. You know, it's maybe 5,000 from an account here, 5,000 from there. Okay, that gets us 10,000. Little things like that to
Yeah.
try to get up to that number, and we can
Yeah.
do a sweep
With
through
the
it tomorrow.
Concern, it's gotta come back in again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just know anything we're using that for
Right.
Yeah.
is a
Yep.
future deferment.
And what you gotta realize is that, I understand the bottom line, and you want, have the residents here be able to afford, what's going on here. But the building is not stopping. It's already projected out the next 5 to 6 years, how much growth is gonna go on in this town.
Hey, chief, you got us going here. You should stop. This is where you just say, thanks for your support. We're on your side.
Yeah.
So do you have what
So
you
let's
need?
go on the expense side. For the revenue side, to balance that, well, essentially, we're gonna need to, we're going to decrease that baseline budget by 75,000. So in turn, we can decrease the revenue right now that we have in there.
Right.
So if we're gonna decrease that revenue 75,000, if we're able to get there, where do you wanna decrease it from?
Yeah.
Property taxes, fund balance, blend of the two.
Well, fund balance, I'm sorry, Shirley, this is where I was not looking at numbers. So
Yeah.
last time I thought it was a pretty comfortable 17% or something. I forget where we are now.
Yeah, we are at, hold on, I have to get to my right memo. So, let's just say we are somewhere between, around, let's just say we're hovering around 17,
So
where
that's
we are.
comfortable, even
Yeah.
Greta felt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But with the knowledge that the fund balance is not likely to be growing now.
at the rate it was.
Yes.
Yep,
And that's using like 630,000, 640,000 from the fund balance for tax relief, or in lieu of
Yeah.
taxes, essentially budgeting a deficit by that amount of money.
Yeah.
yep.
And the tax rate is 37 going to 40, is that what you said? 30?
35 going to 39,
39.
just shy of 40.
Yep. Like 35 and a half to 39 and a half.
That's where the 11% came from.
Yes,
Sounds worse than it is because it's, the
Yeah.
rate is so low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so each cent is about $200,000, so we try to take 75,000 away from property taxes, what is that, we're like a third of a cent.
That'd be my preference, do that.
Yeah.
Every little bit counts.
Great.
We can reduce property tax projection a little bit there, so a half cent would be 110, so it's, yeah, you're probably in like the 3.7 or so, just guesstimate off the top of my head.
rough guess, yep.
So that might take that $10 a month and maybe get it down to like a little over $9 a month for the median home.
Yeah.
So I can do this in my head in school, but not town yet. So how does so when we put the two positions back in, we're probably at 6.5%, 7% on expense. How does that get to 10 on the tax rate?
So on the tax rate, yeah, I'm just thinking, what's the net amount of money we're adding to the general fund for that?
Right.
Pull that up.
it wouldn't be 6.5 though, because it's 6 right now with 2 half-year positions, and all of the other adjustments and additions, it was 6.25. But that was with a starting of 5.9.
I think
So
maybe
if
just roughly looking at it, it's, if we do 1.5 positions, maybe call it an extra $100,000 to
Yeah.
the bottom line, so that's a little under a half cent.
Yeah.
So we could, remove that, get it down to like 3.7, call it, then add a half cent back in, and then you're a little over 4.
Yeah.
So in that case, we could then use a little bit more of reserves to get it down to just under 4 again. That's one way to
Yeah.
think about it from a policy standpoint, I guess.
All right, Greta, you did this faster than I did. So if we're at 4.9% and we're adding 100,000. That's 5.5-ish.
Yeah.
Between 5 and 6%, right?
Yep.
So expenses are going up less than 6% and taxes are going up 10%. That's the thing I'm missing, because did the revenue go down?
With the taxing component, just trying to think how we structurally built it. Yeah, the primarily increase is being funded by property taxes because,
Right.
it's not new local option tax. It's, other types of revenue. There's been ebbs and flows there. That nets out pretty low. So essentially, property taxes are being used to,
Fund all of
Right.
it, that's it, yeah.
to fund
Yeah,
the
that's what it
increase.
is.
Yep, it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll get there. I can explain education funding, so.
More
Few people in the world, in the country who can, so.
So what I'm essentially hearing from the board is try to back out that 75 and then also back that out from the tax rate. And then with the 1.5 position add that back in, and then see where we are with the tax rate and try to get it around 4 cents if we can. Kind of where we are today,
Yes.
just
Yep.
that
Yes.
hopscotch or metaphor.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't protect the fund balance above the 17%. I mean,
No.
I don't think we need to dive into it anymore necessarily, but, I mean, I would, but some people on the board wouldn't, so.
Well, I mean, I think we talked about, we had expected it to be much lower, like
Yeah.
13.
14,
14.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
So, I mean, if to get us there to that 4, I mean, if we have to use some additional fund balance, that's what we will do, and even if that brings us to, 16 or,
Right.
whatever, that's still reasonable.
Yeah, I'm just,
Yeah.
just off the top of my head, if it's 100,000 we need to add in for the expense side, we're decreasing it 75,000 for the tax revenue side. Maybe there's 25 to 30,000 to get it back to 4 cents. That would be for the fund balance at
Yeah.
that point.
Yeah.
I could be completely wrong.
Reasonable.
Once Shirley runs the final numbers.
Yeah.
That's just roughly how I'm thinking it could play
Yeah.
out right now.
Yep.
So you have what you need?
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah, so we'll see if we can get this to play out, but ultimately, you're looking for a baseline budget that's about 4.9%, then add the 1.5 positions to that for your new bottom line number, year-to-year increase. For the tax rate, try to keep then, once that's figured out, on the revenue side, keep the tax rate right around a 4-cent increase, the best we can. Probably a number that starts with a 3.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
that, but I thought you'd yell at me.
Yeah.
If you can.
If you can, that would be, ideal.
Okay. We'll sharpen our pencils.
Okay, so are we ready to move on?
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Night, Chief.
So for the
Next,
draft-
town meeting 2025 warning?
So I shared with you a draft warning. Our attorney, he's working to get a draft question for the extra ERF funding.
yeah.
I thought I'd have that today, but he hadn't quite finished it up yet. I'll get that to the board when I have it, just what the language would look like.
Did we actually say we wanted a penny increase on that, or did we?
I think we're still just
we
thinking about it.
equivocated on 150,000 that the Conservation Commission is recommending?
Open for discussion still.
Pardon me?
Open for discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I prefer to put it to the taxpayers to say that here's what they're recommending, we should go with that rather than anything more.
I'm sorry, say that again, Terry?
It would be Article 6.
Yeah.
150,000 instead of a penny. 'Cause a penny's about 210.
Yeah.
I think there's some discussion among those folks to make it a half a penny, but I think it's, I think
Well,
making it a fixed amount, is that what you're
They actually
saying?
came in with 150,000.
I know, but they're having, because they were thinking on the 3/4 of a penny is a hard message, right? And they were trying to
Yeah.
figure out if they,
But we've shortchanged in the last couple of years as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we do a warning and a vote on something that has a specific number as opposed to a tax
It's
number?
a good question. I'd have to ask our attorney to see if we did, 3/4 of a cent is a little bit of an awkward number.
Yeah.
but
Yes.
I think that would raise about 162,000 with a number like that. I'm just thinking, because it's a tax levy, it's applied to the grand list to then raise that tax revenue. If you're gonna raise a fixed amount of money, the rate would have to be determined based on the grand list, so have to see if how the question can be posed,
Right.
depending on those variables.
So, well, if that's what we have to do, that's what we have to do. But when we get to the explanation of it, either in our stuff that we send out, we should be able to figure out our approximate dollar amount that equates to.
Right.
And should we ask the attorney to examine if it does have to be a certain percentage, like tax, 3/4, half a penny, whatever it is, if we could actually have the article say, with the intent to raise X number of dollars. So it's right there, so they know,
That would be
well,
nice.
that's what that
That might be
is,
a good-
because people are gonna look at it and say,
Yeah,
I don't know what that is, so no.
right.
Yeah.
When in doubt, vote it down.
Yeah.
So,
That's a good idea.
And then just education and get the, Conservation Commission, to spread the message about what that ERF goes to and what we're looking to do with that. I'm comfortable personally with it being, the 3/4, I mean, it's like you said, it's an awkward number, but it's, then tied to the grand list, and so, it will be more than that 150. I mean, we've they've not gotten the funding that we've hoped for many years, and so if it's 162, that's all the better, so.
So I'm hearing, there's support to put the question on the warning.
yeah, I think so.
Just
Yeah.
it's just dependent on, we'll see what the attorney comes back with the
Yeah.
language. I imagine I thought I had that today, but I'll pose that to him as well with that dollar amount. If it could be a fixed dollar amount, or just including it in the verbiage of the amount,
Yeah.
the intent of the amount of money to raise.
Right. I'm concerned on the fixed dollar amount, just thinking about how it works and creating the tax bills. That might be some number that's 6 digits long to generate that
Yeah.
number.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
So again, I think if we could put the actual number, the actual tax number on the warning, but also put, some sort of explanation, with the intent to raise, that might take care of your,
yeah.
yeah.
that'll give you a real number to work with. It won't
Yeah.
go like the value of pi.
Yeah.
So the board good with that then? It may be an article for 3/4 of a cent on the tax rate.
Yeah.
We intend to raise approximately $150,000 to go into the ERF in FY '26.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Other than that, he only suggested adding one word, I forgot what, it didn't change anything materially, but he said, take it or leave it, you can add this word, and it's part of the prologue of the warning, so I'll add that word in there. Otherwise, the warning's good, just need that article. Deadline for petitioned articles, I believe, is next Thursday as well. I haven't heard anything that may be in the works, but that's the deadline. Or actually, it might be this Thursday, that would be better. Oh, it's this Thursday, I knew it was before the next meeting. So
That's cutting it really close.
Yeah.
still makes you could approve
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
warning next meeting, approve the budget, and then we typically have the board approve the capital budget, and then we do a motion to approve what's going into, from the fund balance towards capital after the capital's approved, so. It's the 2-page agenda, but a lot of it is, we've done all the work leading up to it for that meeting. But I think that's all
Okay.
staff has for the prep here.
I'm sorry, what?
I think that's all we have for the warning.
Okay, yeah,
and the
great.
votes.
Okay, so if we can move on to, is there anything in the manager's report?
Just following up what I shared via email, the equalization study, I include a hard copy. I think I'd emailed it to you previously as well, but that's in your materials. I can't speak to it well, but I know the school is looking at a possible tax reduction from the materials they had out there last week.
Oh, they put it out in Front Porch Forum
Yeah.
already, so.
And
Yeah.
Yep. I think this is the first year we haven't challenged the equalization study in a decade.
Yeah, yeah, with that state adjustment.
Yeah, first of all, we don't understand it anymore.
No outliers. It's
Yeah. I was kind of surprised actually that the, what's that dispersal thing? With the COD?
COD.
Oh, the COD.
Yeah, is only 11%, because that's supposed to be, some properties are, market values this much off of assessment, and some is this much off of assessment, and that's what that dispersal is, right? That's
Yeah.
when you know it's a problem.
Yeah, it went down from 13 to 11.
Yeah.
The reappraisal order is when that goes over 20, so we're at the 50th percentile of the COD.
Yeah, it's kind of strange that that
Or
would shrink.
50th, like the 75th percentile.
So, is there any new business, other business, sorry?
Nope, nothing I have.
Okay. Okay, that brings us to final thoughts on items from this meeting. Are there anything, items that we want to circle back to? Seeing no hands, I guess. Okay, and we've already done our executive session, so I think that concludes our meeting. Is that everybody, we have consensus on that? It sounds like we do. Everybody want to stay longer?
Oh, guys.
All right, okay, so with that, I will say that we are adjourned.
Much more.